representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
I feel like 2024 is going to be magical.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of FOF Live presented Burger and Hicks. As always, you can check out Burger and Hicks on their Instagram, TikTok, and you will have their number below so you can call them for all your needs. As you can see, you have a packed house tonight for the biggest game of the Marlins season so far. You can see right here, this will be the topic of discussion right there, but that'll be later on against the Oakland A's. But of course, we're coming off not just the first series win of the season for the Marlins, but a sweep in intense fashion with 2 extra inning games. But before we get into that, let's talk to our panel. I'm your host, Daniel. We have Ken Barrat, Eli Sussman, Isaac Zoo, intern Nate, and joining us for the first time on a live stream, he joined us on Jeopardy, a real-life Jeopardy champion, Alec Chow. Alec, it's great to have you on as a guest.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love what you guys do, and I love the Marlins in spite of everything that's happened this season. So excited to talk about them.
Let's start off with the Rocky series. The Marlins took all 3 games in what was, again, intense fashion, multiple inning games on 2 occasions. Kevin, I want to start with you. Give us your take on this series. The Marlins actually not just won the series, but they got their first sweep again, albeit against the Rockies, a team that going into it many thought were worse than the Marlins. But again, the Marlins did show up and sweep.
Yeah, definitely. I guess more of a sigh of relief that the Marlins finally won a series, have some sort of a win streak going, 3-game win streak going into this Oakland series. Good pitching for the most part from the Marlins, especially the bullpen looked really good, especially in that last game in extras. And again, Roderick Munoz put up another nice start in that second game, goes 5 innings, 7 strikeouts, looks really, really good. And the offense once again comes in big for Miami there. That first game definitely was a little tough to watch, just, especially with how easily Ryan Feltner was just cruising through that lineup. And then, you get into that bottom of the 9th. But overall, I mean, you have to like what you saw. Definitely weird, that first and third game. Justin Lawrence, I think, blew the lead. And then it was Jalen Beeks who blew it again in extras. And it was kind of the same thing in game 1 and 3. So interesting choice there. And the Rockies ended up having a team meeting after that game. So certainly for them, not the greatest series. They blow that 5-run lead in the first game. But again, Dane Myers again looked really good. Finally comes up. He plays in that last game and gives the insurance run in that middle game. So couldn't have asked for it any better, honestly. And now they set themselves up for what's actually a pretty good Oakland A's team, which we'll talk about soon.
Yeah, this series was, you got to give it to the kids in this series. Dane, overall, I think Dane was like the most important player in the series, definitely offensively. And then not to be overlooked in that final game, defensively, tie game in the top of the 9th inning, Anthony Maldonado, who was good himself, but he almost completely blew that final game in the top of the 9th. But the Marlins get kind of a gift out there with Dane in left field, backing up that wild throw that went down the third base line and getting like a huge out in that situation. So between that, obviously Munoz and the way that he pitched, he was even better than in his first outing. So it's really encouraging. I'm not sold on him yet for a guy that was struggling really badly in Jacksonville before they called him up. But it's definitely a step in the right direction. And overall, this was one of those series where I think if you're watching it honestly, it says more about how dysfunctional the Rockies are than how good the Marlins are. That first game, the Marlins, they're like win probability was below 1% entering the bottom of the ninth inning. It was such an embarrassment by the Rockies in order to blow that. And then each of the next two games as well. Like they were the lack of offense that they had in against Munoz. He's good, but he's not like the fact that he was as dominant as he was through the first 5 innings of that middle game. I think that spoke more about these Rockies hitters. They're missing a couple guys, and otherwise their approach was really bad. So to me, this was, entering the series, I felt the Rockies were on paper just a worse team and talent-wise not on the same level. And I think it was really apparent on the field that this is a team that is as far away from possible as like being a competent major league opponent. So the Marlins, they took advantage of it.
Yeah. Isaac?
I think everyone is, correctly calling this the Dane series, and I'm going to give credit to where it's due, and that's Jesus Sanchez and the Miami Marlins bullpen. I couldn't believe it when I checked. The Marlins bullpen did not give up a single run the entire series, except for that one unearned run that Tanner Scott allowed in the first game in extra innings with that placed runner. But the entire Marlins bullpen really kept the Rockies scoreless the entire series. And I think that's the difference in a sweep and probably losing 2 out of 3. So I think you got to give credit to guys like Nardi and Bender, who had scoreless outings, Birch Smith, Declan Cronin, all those relievers that really kept the games close for the most part, because it was a 1-run game in the middle game when Dane Myers came through with that 2-run single. So that was big. And Jesus Sanchez getting a couple of walks in game 2, driving in the game winner, obviously in game 3. I think those were the big heroes for this series sweep.
Yeah. We'll go to Nate and finish off with Alec. Just what your thoughts were on the series. Again, the Marlins getting their first series win of the season, doing it in the sweep. Nate, what stood out to you? Could be pitching, hitting, just overall from the series against the Rockies.
Yeah, if I had to use one word, I'd say resilient. A lot like the 2023 Marlins, coming back from games that they really shouldn't have won, such as Tuesday's game. And, of course, just coming from behind and playing as a team. Isaac mentioned a lot of guys in the bullpen. Maldonado coming up huge multiple times, especially after picture of Jesus, especially after throwing that ball away, and then Dane backs him up. But striking out Stallings and then getting, I believe it was Montero to ground out. And, of course, in the second game, he came in for the save. And also, something I want to mention is Vidal Brujan. He got that rally started in the 9th inning, and I think he's up to 275 right now. He's doing a lot better the past few weeks, so very intriguing from him. But yeah, definitely resilient, and hopefully they can carry it into Oakland.
Yeah, Alec.
Yeah, I mean, based on my prediction going into the series, I was pretty pessimistic about the Marlins' chances. I think I gave Colorado the possibility of a sweep with McMahon taking MVP. I think it's great to see the Marlins take a series. I think it's something that's really needed. I'm a little hesitant to say they're back, as Sanchez said after last night's win. But, as I said on Twitter, I think I'm here to kind of eat crow about people like Birch Smith and Vidal Brujan. Like, truly, I was not familiar with their game. Not to say that Birch Smith is the best reliever in the pen or anything, but I think he's significantly improved from what was a very shaky start. Like just looking at Savant, I think he owns like a 1.5 whip right now. He's doing a lot better than he had previously, and I feel more comfortable seeing him come into a game than I had in the past. So that, I think, was just a standout for me that, he's re-earned a certain degree of confidence.
No, they definitely didn't have that many guys, and Skip kind of mentioned it. He didn't know what he was going to do if Sanchez was out on that play, but to put in Birch Smith in that leverage situation was definitely interesting. But I mean, those back-to-back strikeouts got those guys swinging. So I mean, yeah, he's actually held his own for the most part in these last couple of weeks. To give the guy credit, I was checking during the game. I was like, his ERA isn't the highest either. It's in the low 3s. So he's definitely been impressive to say the least.
Yeah. Like Eli said about Roderick Starr, just shows how dysfunctional the Rockies are offensively. I think that Birch Smith outing really demonstrated how shitty the Rockies offense is. The fact that they couldn't even advance runners, they didn't know what they were doing, and Birch Smith is getting 92 past them. So yes, I agree with Mr. Alec. He has really demonstrated the ability to get big outs in big situations like he did. I don't know if I would trust him to do it in a few days against the Dodgers. But we'll see. Like you said, it's a season to try these things out. This is a Peter Bendick's acquisition, and I guess they got to see what they have in Mr. Birch. And the other one, Vidal Brujan, He couldn't have been much worse than he had been in his major league career and his start to the Marlins season. So I'm glad to see him have a few games in a row with multiple hits and playing okay defense at short. So yeah, that's also very nice to see from Ruhan, with TA not really getting it going yet.
Yeah, and one name we didn't mention, Josh Bell got that homer in that last game as well, hits in the other two. So, it's nothing crazy, but definitely shows that he's maybe starting to finally turn the corner there. And better late than never, man, because they're gonna really need him. And if this season goes how we expect it, there's other reasons why they'll need Josh Bell to really get it going.
Yeah, you mentioned Rodri. Let's talk about a little bit about Edward and his start against the Rockies. 4 innings, 3 hits, 4 earned runs, 9 strikeouts, but he did walk a good amount of players, 4 walks. His walks per 9 now on the season is 4.7, lower than last year, which was 6, but again, it's still the highest, second highest in his young career. Eli, with Edward Cabrera, he's shown flashes of what he can be, but now he's showing what he has been the last couple of years.
Right. And actually, it was a little uncharacteristic that the big blow in his outing was Stallings hitting that home run against him. Not just like sneaking over the wall, but crushing it. And that was really the difference between him maybe going 5 innings, 1 run allowed, versus what the final line looks like, which was just really mediocre in this one. He can get around the walks, and that's what makes him really fascinating. Even at times last year where he could like limit damage even when he walked guys, because it's usually so hard to square up. In this case, there was just that one big hit that makes it look a lot different than it was. I think overall, I like what I see from him more this year than what we saw last year, where I think he has overall like come a little bit in the right direction in terms of his control. And like I like what I'm seeing more from his just each of his individual pitches as well compared to last year. This was like, yes, this was really a frustrating one, but I think overall I'm not really too intimidated by the 6 ERA and what the bottom line numbers are. I think there's still a lot of optimism there, and I'm really curious to see exactly how long his leash is. I'd like to see him stick in the rotation for the foreseeable future, but they do have Braxton Garrett about to come back, and they do have Jesus Luzardo like pretty close to coming back. So, and then you look at the rest of this group, and yeah, so it'll be fascinating because his next start is against the Dodgers. That's still looking ahead in extra series, but yeah, overall this was a weird outing, but overall, like I'm fine with what I've seen from him overall if you combine the whole picture since he came back from his injury.
That was the longest homer of Jacob Stallings' career, so it goes to show that guy does not hit for too much power, if not any. So yeah, it's probably why the face you see on your screens there.
Yeah, his second ever home run at Lone Depot Park. And it came out just the perfect time there.
And both were crushed. Last year's against St. Louis was it was a no doubt. I was certain that Stallings would never hit one out at that ballpark when he was a Marlin. He hit one and it was a crushed one, and this one as well, just a no doubter. I'm like, I wasn't familiar. This guy's he's having a hell of a start to the season.
And then he had that base hit too late in the game that put him in a good situation. I believe they scored some runs there too. So
he has a 6.05 ERA. He still has a 2.93 FIP through 4 starts because the strikeouts are up really significantly even from last year. That's why he's striking out 35% of the batters he's facing. That'd be a completely elite number for anybody, especially for a starter. And I think as we got over, even though the Rockies themselves kind of made a lot of easy outs against him in this case, overall, I think he has made strides in terms of really living up to his swing and miss potential. So now the question is exactly how many of those walks can he survive? And so I'm confident that most of his outings are going to look prettier than this one did.
Yeah. And mention what Jesus Sanchez says that the Marlins are back. Do you guys believe him? Do you think this sweep against the Rockies was exactly what the Marlins needed? Do you think they'll be able to get over the hump and try to put on a respectable run for the rest of this, not maybe the rest of the season, but at least in the short term? Do you think this will push them to where they need to be?
No. Let's be pretty simple. It's the Rockies. They're not a very good team. Now, is it good? Is it a sigh of relief? Of course. It could get him back on track in some sort of way. But aside from that, it's the Rockies. I mean, and let's be honest, in that first game, the Marlins did not look very good.
Mhm.
That third game, they blew a lead that they had. And aside from that, I mean, no, they're not back. Unfortunately, not. But doesn't mean that they could get a rolling a little bit and finally, at least not look like the team they did the first couple of weeks. We've spoken about it multiple times. This roster, as bad as they've been, I don't think the record really reflects what the guys that they have. And we're finally seeing some guys turn the corner there, especially in the starting pitching department. And you're getting Berger back soon. Braxton should be starting in that LA series if everything goes well in terms of his rehab stuff and the choices that they make in terms of if he's ready or not. So they're not totally back, but definitely makes it feels good to take one and use that going into Oakland.
Yeah,
I
they will
think
need
their
that going
days
forward.
of playing 20 game under 500 ball are over. I don't think they're that bad. I think they are better than that. Do I think they're back to being a 84 win team? No. But I can see them maybe closing the gap and getting to maybe 8 games under 500. I think that's where you have to shoot for. Win 70, 72 games. That seems very, very unrealistic, but I think that's where Marlins fans should put their hope for.
Step in the right direction, but games against the Dodgers and Phillies, that'll be the true test of if they're really back, I'd say.
And it's crazy to say because those are going to be the best teams they've played all season. You look at, and we're not going to harp on this too much, but, you look at the Pirates, they're not very good anymore. The Angels, they just lost Mike Trout. They haven't been very good. And you look at other teams, they just haven't been good. Well, aside from the Braves, who they've played and they almost beat, to be honest with you, and then they got swept. I mean,
The Nats.
they haven't played the greatest competition.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Yankees too. So maybe my point there isn't the best sense, but they've played some pretty good teams. But Dodgers are by far going to be the best team they've played.
Yeah. And going up with Oakland, I believe that they're severely underrated. I think they're actually not bad. I think it comes down more to their pitching. I think offensively still has a ways to go there. But if you guys want to, let's hop into that picture right behind me just in time because AJ Puk just sent to his rehab assignment. We can go ahead and look back on this trade, which was made and FanFest 2023, I believe. It was a big move for us here on FOF. But let's talk about where we've been since that trade. AJ Puk has been a reliever, starter, failed, injured, rehab assignment. Judge Bleday seemingly has been a platoon guy for Oakland. They're trying to maybe get him there almost every day. Very thin roster. Eli, talk to us about this trade and where maybe both guys were before to where they are now.
I was a big fan of the trade at the time. Thought it made a lot of sense. Entering last season, the bullpen, especially the high leverage bullpen area, was a very big gray area for this team. Puck plugged into that really well, and it got off to a great start on that end. Bleday seemed to be blocked at the time. Now, I mean, part of that was the team's stubbornness to give Avi another shot at redemption, but there were actually legitimate guys ahead of him, such as DLC and Jesus Sanchez as well in those spots where there just wasn't clear exactly. Well, there were plenty of concerns about what he had done in the upper minors, and then he really face planted in the majors. Aside from that iconic walk to begin his major league career, the last couple of months of the 2022 season, the limitations of his game were just really apparent offensively. So they're so low, relatively low, but while he still had some value left. So I thought it wouldn't be a guy that they would really miss. And I think the way it has played out, unfortunately for this year, the Marlins got a little greedy with Puck, trying to stretch him out as a starter, and he showed some tantalizing stuff in spring training, but fast forward to what has happened. He was terrible, then he got hurt, where I think this trade was trending towards being a Marlins win entering this year, but now if you want to just compare it as a long distance race, Puck has just totally stopped in his tracks for a while because of that experiment that has gone wrong and the shoulder fatigue, if you want to call it, that he's coming back from right now. Whereas with Bleday, he's been streaky. When he first got called up by the A's last year, he was good for a few weeks, and then he settled into being a replacement level guy. And this year, it's been pretty much the same thing, where he was hot early on in the year. Very recently, he had a 2 home run game, but overall, parts of 2 seasons there, he's hitting 208, and he's below average on a league adjusted basis, and he has 13 homers, and he just doesn't have any standout offensive tools at all. This is a guy when at times the hope was that he had great plate discipline and that he would have at least average-ish power, if not slightly above average, and that really hasn't translated. So there's just there are surprising limitations to him, both physically and his approach as well. And then kind of the biggest surprise is that he can actually stick in center field. He's been playing center field full time this year, and he was for a decent chunk of last year as well. He grades out pretty decently over there. So in your mind, you can think about how things might go a little differently for the Marlins if he's like a viable center fielder, and if Jazz is able in that alternate universe to be a middle infielder, and they don't have to sign Tim Anderson. Like, if there, I guess there's a way you could rearrange it and have some sort of regret. But like overall, I think this has been pretty even, and unfortunately, I think it's just been pretty underwhelming for both sides when you really take a big look at it.
Yeah. Just looking at there in the stats, OPS for JJ Bleday since being traded 681, and then for AJ Puck, he has a 4.99 ERA as a Marlin in that time. So it's again, you're getting players that are seemingly average to below average there, and what they've done so far since the Marlins. Kevin, I'll go with you since you're one of our big prospect guys here. With Bleday, what did you see with him? With the Marlins to now, he's with Oakland. Just how would you revisit this trade? Is it a win? Is it a loss? Is it just a push? How would you look at this trade now, a year?
Yeah, I kind of disagree with Eli in terms that there's no clear winner. I would say the Marlins have basically, they've won this trade. You look at what Puck did that first month or two into the season when they were, one of the better teams in the National League. That guy was shutting out the ninth inning every single time. I mean, I know he started to struggle, and maybe now into a different role it could change, but the guy's still there. He hasn't been sent down by any point where Bleday was sent down when he got there. Never really played consistently. You got to think of that. And then the sweeper's been great for Puck, pretty good pitch mix. He added a couple more pitches this time around too. I mean, I like what I've seen from Puck for the most part. I know he's struggled at times, especially now as a starter, which I don't think many of us saw coming, especially after what he did during spring training. But there's reason to think that, he'll go through this rehab assignment, come back, and he'll look better than what he did prior. And, I think something that Ethan mentioned was, the velo was down for him a little bit as a starter, and maybe hopefully now as a reliever going into 1-inning spurts, that changes. He has a good chance to really rebuild the value that he kind of lost, at the start of the season. And you got to give the Marlins a win. He was a crucial part of that 2023 team. JJ Bleday has done not too much for Oakland. I mean, again, he's been good these last couple of weeks, but aside from that, that's probably been his best stretch with the A's. And Puck has been an integral piece for the Marlins in the bullpen. I mean, at least for the first half of the season last year, and what he's done. And then he looked all right at some points. I mean, I think the Marlins won this trade. And again, you kind of mentioned Eli Bleday wasn't going to be starting the season on the major league team by any point. De La Cruz and Sanchez have been better. They probably would have gotten rid of him at some point either way. So you'd rather trade and like they did, and they've gotten a lot of good stuff from Puck, and I believe he's still under control for a couple more years.
I think at the end of last year, it was definitely a Marlins win. I think at this point this year, you just look at it as a wash for both teams, shitty players for both teams right now. I think Buck definitely has a chance to make this a win for Miami again, but Bleday is playing almost every day, just obviously seeing against lefties. I don't think Bleday is good at all. I like Eli said, he has a huge limit on his offensive ceiling. I think there's nothing there, to be honest. I think his fourth outfielder ceiling is very accurate. I would honestly rather have Brian Miller than JJ Bleday on my team. And AJ Puck, his start to the season could not have gone worse. He's on the IL. Velocity is down, so we can't necessarily say still that it's a win for Miami, but I wouldn't. It's just it's like the Stallings, Connor Scott, and trade. They just
Kyle Nicholas has been good though.
No clear winner here.
Nate, Alec, I want to get your thoughts on this. Maybe on JJ Bleday, AJ Puck. Now, starter, reliever. Just what are your overall thoughts on this trade?
I agree with Kevin, honestly. When the trade happened, I thought it was a huge win. Puck was a win now type of guy. Eli mentioned the lack of dominant arms at the end of that bullpen. And in the future, he was a 6 overall pitch, saw a lot of upside on him. And, like Kevin mentioned, that first month of closing, he was dominant. He was taking guys out like it was nothing. And then he started to struggle, and Bleday has been kind of the same guy he's been since he broke into the league, kind of below average offensively, average defensively. But moving forward, once Puck does come back from rehab, I think there's still a decently high ceiling for a back-end reliever, and I would still do the Marlins to win here.
Yeah, similarly, I'm not going to act like I know very much about Bleday in his tenure with the A's. I don't pay very much attention to the American League at all. Have been a little more this year, and I think that Oakland is very much a dark horse team. But just looking at Bleday's stats, like at a glance, he doesn't seem all that inspiring. That walk does stick out in my mind, Eli, that you mentioned as like his shining moment.
His career moment.
But I mean, yeah, I've always liked Puck. I would concur that the trade was a win as of last year, and right now it's in flux just because the experiment as a starter failed, and I really feel like they let it go on for a little too long. They should have moved him back to the pen earlier. I'm hopeful that he'll regain some of his former glory when he returns from the IL, but something that I think people are not discussing enough is that he lost the aura when he cut off all his hair. I think he should have kept the hair the way it was. And I think that may be why he didn't have the start that he wanted.
Alex Carver, this is the reason why we're even having this topic for you. JJ Bleday, AJ Puck. Just talk to us about this. You were there for JJ Bleday day one in his minor league career, day one when he had a big walk against a dominant late inning reliever. Talk to us. Just talk to us about this trade overall. Again, AJ Puck has not been maybe what Marlins fans have hoped for. Pretty good as a reliever, as a starter, just failed completely miserably. And JJ Bleday has just been league average again. He's been hot as of late, had a 2-home-run game not too long ago. But just talk to us about your thoughts on these two guys.
It's a lose-lose trade. JJ Bleday has been JJ Bleday. He's been up and down, like you said, Daniel. But yeah, it's a lose-lose trade because of how the Marlins are using AJ Puck. If the Marlins were to use AJ Puck as a reliever and give up on the starter thing, I think the Marlins would win the trade. But right now it's a lose-lose trade for both sides. Neither side got anything really of true value. I still like JJ Bleday. I actually think he's been pretty damn good in center field, which is not a natural position for him. Never was. He learned it. So I think that he's given the A's more value as a center fielder. Because he's been able to at least do it more than faking it. So with the Marlins, he only faked it. With the A's, I think he's gotten a lot better at center field. So if he can come by more consistency and be more of a platoon player, which is what he is right now, I think the A's will eventually win the trade, and he still has time. So I still like JJ Bleday. He had a great walk in his major league debut against the late inning reliever. His minor league career was very up and down. I still think he has a bit of a hole in the swing that he needs to fix, but he's with the A's, and the A's have all the time in the world, so I think he's in a good spot.
We'll always have the Arizona Fall League stand for JJ Bleday. It's okay, Carver.
Turn the corner.
I will give you this, Carver, in terms of these two guys. If you just want to look at this season for AJ Puck, his WAR is negative 0.7. And if you got JJ Bleday, it's a positive. It's a 0.7. And for JJ Bleday, his defense also has been picking up the last 2 years. He's been negative defensively to now where he's, again, slightly above average there, but we're talking WAR about two guys.
Look at the private chat. He's been good.
WAR
Negative.
He's in
I'm looking at defensive WAR. Defensive
negative
WAR,
1
average.
outs above average.
There's mixed opinions on his defense, but I think overall it's been adequate in center, which is better than it looks like. It definitely did not look that way in 2022 when he played a lot of center, too much center with the Marlins.
Yeah,
his arm, all the value for the optimistic people on his defense, it's just from his arm. He has a decent arm. He's a right fielder. He's only playing center field because I don't know why they don't want to have Esteury Ruiz out there. But Bleday, him being a center fielder, it's not been good. I agree with Alex Carver, though, that it is a lose-lose. As of right now, at the end of last season, it was 100% a Marlins win. right now it's just a wash. I think that's how most people would put it. But no, let's not get this mistaken. Blade is a right fielder that's just forced to play center right now. He
It's a
sucks.
push, and as for push, let's push along this stream and head into our break. But first, we're gonna have a flip fish. Eli, let's get that flip fish going.
Flipped fish.
As we always do, select a player a former player who was with both of these teams at some point during their career, the Marlins and the A's. This is going to be about as hard as any flipped fish that we've done before, because of how old it is. I think maybe Carver has a chance at this one, but it's difficult because of how the proximity to the current day. We are looking at a former Marlins and A's infielder for the most part. 21 WAR player, stuck around for about 15 years in the majors, beginning in 1986. So this tells you relatively early on in Marlins history, a lefty swinging infielder who at this day is now 61 years old. So try to think back to the early years of Marlins history, guys who also had a tenure in Oakland. And on the other side of the break, we'll do the reveal and get along with the rest of the show. So stick with us.
We have been representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
I have it.
It is not Jorge Cantu, long before his time. And
Carver,
Tamar is useless on this one. Too young to remember.
I don't know this. I would have guessed Kurt Abbott, but he's not a lefty, so it's not him. So I don't know who this is.
It's Dave Magadon.
Magadon, yes.
Dave Magadon, a first baseman. Yes, that is a good.
I think it was Sean Millerick that added it to your flip fish tweet. Somebody,
I knew someone put that one.
No, I think it was David Tobin. It was David Tobin, who was another super sub of ours. David.
Eli threw me when he said infielder. I was thinking like middle infielder, third baseman, and then I was like, oh, okay, this capital.
All right,
so it'll be easier next time, I assure you.
Yeah, that one sucked.
Dodgers. I can think of a couple guys, but let's let's go ahead and talk about the series preview with the Miami Marlins taking on the Oakland, soon to be Sacramento, Las Vegas Athletics there. But let's look at this. JJ Bleday not in the lineup for today.
Oh man,
the A's did call up one of their better prospects for today. I forgot what was his Brian. I don't know. I forgot his name.
Let me throw it up there for people to see. They also brought back JD Davis from the IL, who had not been with them to this point in the season. But Brett Harris is a top 10 prospect in their system. So I think seeing the lineup.
Back-to-back debuts for top guys against the Marlins. Jordan Beck, now Brett Harris. See how they do there. But let me ask you guys your overall thoughts on the Oakland Athletics, because this is a team coming into the year people thought were going to be way worse than what the Marlins are currently. But so far, they're just a few games under 500. I believe they took a series against the Yankees. I think they took one against the Braves, maybe the Dodgers, I think. But they've had multiple wins against over 500 teams this season and look like a sneaky pick to take the last wild card spot in the AL as of right now, looking at the team. But overall, the panel, whoever wants to jump in, what is your thoughts on the Oakland Athletics? And again, this is a team way different than what the Rockies were than we saw them.
I think offensively their lineup stacks up well with the Jupiter Hammerheads lineup. And I think where the Oakland A's can be dangerous is their bullpen. Obviously, Mason Miller, we know what he can do, but their entire bullpen is very impressive. And it's going to be tough for these Marlins hitters whenever they get that starter out of there. It's going to be tough. So I think that's what you have to keep an eye out for this series. But other than that, the rotation has been okay. Their lineup is just so gosh darn bad. Other than Bleday doing all right, and you also had what's his name? I'm blanking on the name now, but the bullpen is where these guys have a lot of assets. If they do want to make some trades, I'm not saying Mason Miller, he's got like 5 years of control, but there are a lot of guys in that bullpen that they can make some contenders very happy.
They are hitting 207 as a team, which
terrible.
is dead last in baseball. Like their lead. I know batting average isn't the biggest stat in the world anymore, but do you guys know who the leading hitter on the A's is in batting average with 238? It's JJ.
Is it Brent Rooker?
It's JJ Bleday.
Langoliers?
It's JJ Bleday.
Technically, it's Tyler Nevin.
What among guys that have gone Abraham Toro was hitting 264
Abraham Toro as well. Yeah.
Didn't they just option Ryan Noda too? Their first baseman opening day.
He'd been awful. Yeah, he totally collapsed after being actually decent last year.
They have
Like to hit that low is just crazy.
They're terrible
amongst their full-time players. Like Tyler Nevin's been pretty good, but like amongst their everyday players, like guys that play like pretty much almost every day, like Bleday is one of their lead guys. That's insane.
That's
crazy.
what you get when you play JJ Bleday and you bat him third.
30th in hits, 29th in runs, 30th average, 29th on base percentage. But when you look at their pitching stats, it's again above half of the league there. So again, it looks like pitching has been really winning them games. And you can go into the bullpen. We'll get to Mason Miller later because I can imagine he is going to be in a tip of a lot of people's tongues in terms of talking about him. And really, when we get to the deadline, that's still far away. But Eli, on this team, you mentioned the pitching. One of the pitching matchups, JP Sears, we're going to see Paul Blackburn, some pretty good pitchers there. But what really intrigues you, maybe pitching-wise, on the athletic teams, maybe not accounting for Mason Miller?
Yeah, it's tough draw for the Marlins. They get what I think are their two overall best starting pitchers in Blackburn and in Sears. Sears kind of had like one bad outing recently that tanked his overall numbers, but I just picked him up in our staff fantasy league for good reason, not just to troll the Marlins, but I think he's really solid. He got off to a really bad start last year too, where his overall numbers are really meh. But if you actually do the splits and look at how he did the final several months of last year, I think he's very easily an above average major league starter to this point. And overall, they don't have a super deep rotation, but as long as they're healthy with this current group, this is shocking, but they have not had a single pitcher go on the IL since opening day. It's been the same 13 pitchers. They're the only team in baseball that's like that. Every other team has had to replace at least 2 pitchers at some point over the last month plus. They're the only team that still has the same 13 guys they had entering the year. And it's no coincidence that they're overperforming. And I think that is really the biggest summation here. I've watched way too much of them because they've actually been decent overall and surprisingly improved from last year. But a lot of it has to do with health. As soon as I think you assume that they're going to be come down to the league average in terms of durability, then they don't have the depth really to keep up with what they're doing. And I don't think they're going to be remotely close to even 500. But for now, things are going well because they have the guys that they want are available to play right now. And I think they very firmly have the starting pitching advantage in this series, which has not really been the case recently. Overall, the Marlins rotation has been good for the last several weeks, ever since really Eddie came back. Almost every spot in that rotation, aside from the Sixto spot, aside from that, Marlins are usually, I think, moving forward, you feel pretty good about what they have starting pitching wise. But in this particular instance, things don't line up particularly well. You already gave the overview on the offense for them. It is pretty bad offensively right there, especially with Zach Geloff, who was the guy who was kind of carrying them towards the end of last year, and he's on the IL, so he'll miss the series. But they did get JD Davis back, so that's one decent veteran presence. That was somebody that I think a lot of Marlins fans wanted the team to pick up at the last minute when the Giants cut him towards the end of spring training. But overall, this is going to be, I would anticipate overall, I think it's going to be a pretty low-scoring series from both sides.
Yeah. Let's get into some Mason Miller talk because he's been the talk of just entirely of Major League Baseball, it seems like, for the past couple weeks. His ability to hit 102, 100 almost consistently and just blow by pitchers. Again, kind of kind of reminiscent of maybe Sixto and some guys that we've seen in the past for the Marlins. But Alex, I want to talk to you about Mason Miller. What just intrigues you about this guy? Because as of right now, he's got to be the best closer in baseball.
Alec.
Oh, sorry.
I was talking to Carver.
Yeah, I thought you said Carver.
Yeah, Carver.
Oh, you were talking to me. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know about your comparison to Sixto, but other than that, yeah.
I meant
like
back then Sixto. That's all right.
You said he's a comparison to Sixto. I don't really know about
100.
that, but other than that, yeah, no, this guy is a stud. I mean, I say it a lot that there's young studs. This guy is a young stud, and I say it about Marlins players, and you guys make fun of me, but this guy's definitely a young kid. He was up last year, and he's really not even that young anymore. He's 25, so I mean, he's really not that young anymore. So to be doing it now is a good time for him to be getting it done. To be doing it as a closer, I think, is probably advantageous for him. He started a bunch last year, so I think that the full-time transition to relief is probably exactly what he needed. And here you go. So yeah, when you switch a guy from starting to relief, and he has that in the tank, and he can just do that automatically, and for the tenure of his 1 to 2 inning outing, that's how you get the ceiling out of your player. So I think the A's did the right thing by making this guy a full-time reliever, and you see the fruits of that labor paying off. I think he's a 2 to 3 pitch pitcher from what I've seen of this guy so far this year, and it's working out. So I think they made the right call. And this is what you see is a guy that is not fit to be a starter, but here's what he can do as a reliever. I wish that the Marlins would make this call more often than they have. They have at some points, but then you see the thing with AJ Puck where they're trying to make him a starter, and that's not working out. So the Marlins are kind of going in the opposite direction in this regard. But yeah, know when to give up on starting, go to relief, and here's what you can have. So the A's are having nice things because they know when to make the right calls in terms of this pitcher.
I think the better comparison would be like a
negative. I cannot get over the fact that he has a FIP below 0. That is the first thing I look at when I look at relievers is the fielder independent pitching. And he is as extraordinary as it is to watch him command that fastball and throw it 102 consistently. The results are out of this world so far. But continue, Kevin, please.
No, my bad. I had no clue you're talking. All right. I just wanted to say that I think a better comparison would have been like a younger or oldest Chapman, kind of when he first came out, not Sixto Sanchez. You look at Chapman and what he's doing still to this day at points, still dotting over 100. So, it just goes to show how dominant. And Mason Miller has a crazy story. And, he was going to work a normal job, in an office. And when he did the drug test, they said he was diabetic. He had to go through a lot for that. And, he was a starter. So he had a lot of, sweating issues, durability issues, staying on the mound for a long period of time. Then the A's just said, let's make him a closer. And, I mean, they've got to be very, very pleased with what they've gotten. And he's going to garner a very good trade package. Maybe not this year, but, certainly in the future. If the A's find themselves at a point where they look like, if the offense comes back to what it's going to bite them, in the late, around the trade deadline. So definitely a cool story and a guy who's had a lot of success and well-deserved.
Does he have a third pitch?
Too, like they could have sent him back like to the minors, Kevin, at age 25, like AAA or whatever, and try to continue to build him up as a starter. But no, they said even though the A's have all the time in the world, they're not going to compete this year, probably not going to compete next year. But they could have sent him back to the minors and be like, hey, we want you to stay as a starter. But they didn't do it. No, they said, hey, we think you have value as a reliever. We know what you have in the tank. You've shown it probably in other places. So let's just make you a reliever. They went with it right now. He's 25. Probably doesn't have anything left to prove in the minors, as you can see by this amazing chart from Baseball Savant. So, yeah, this guy has nothing left to prove in the minors. Probably isn't going to succeed as a starter because of health issues, and also I think because of, just the lack of control as his starts got older later or earlier last year. So, yeah, no, I think that this guy is definitely fit to be a reliever. He's showing it, and it just shows what can happen if you notice the ceiling of a player. This is his ceiling as a reliever, and I think he could be a damn good one as he's showing right now.
Eli, do you remember the last time a pitcher had a negative FIP?
Well, for a full season, no. But in little splotches, the closest thing I think of is Craig Kimbrell when he was at the top of his game like 8 years ago. Yeah, especially then, especially the very start of his career. That's probably when his stats were craziest, when he's first coming up with the Braves. That's like 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So this is more velocity. Like, this is really the only guys we've seen with this kind of velo that are actually effective have been Chapman. That is pretty much it to this point. And his command is even better than Chapman's is so far. So you just don't know. I think this is a fair point by Devin. Like, even if he's healthy, you don't know exactly how long this is going to last. The Marlins themselves, they've seen with guys like Andrew Nardi, who was an awesome reliever throughout the entire of last year. And now this year, one of the worst relievers in baseball to this point in the season. This stuff is so fickle that you just don't know like how much consistency there's going to be within a season or across multiple years. But that is Carver made a great point about just recognizing how they should develop him. He was a starter last year. He looked really good as a starter, but had a big injury setback. And they've understandably
TJ, right? He got TJ.
Not last year, I think earlier in his career at TJ. Last year, he had a significant injury, but didn't have a full surgery for it. So he's just a totally fascinating guy, and he is absolutely appointment viewing. As somebody that has MLB.TV and can hop around to any game, I've seen him pitch against like at least 4 or 5 different teams live, just because it's especially fun when he goes up against the best hitters in baseball, and there's nobody that has a chance against him if he's just his usual self.
Yeah, sorry. I was
go ahead, Alec.
I don't know very much about Mason Miller. This is really the first I've become acquainted with him over the course of the season, but I will say that just by virtue of where I live, the Orioles coverage is very apparent. And I remember seeing a clip of him throwing against the Orioles, and my God, just an unbelievable performance against, one of the best hitting teams in baseball. So, and the A's took that series to just underline that point. So,
yeah,
just really quick to talk about the FIP. I'm sorry, Daniel, but Craig Kimbrell's 2012 season, my goodness. Craig Kimbrell, over the duration of the whole season, it's 62 innings pitched, a .78 FIP. He was striking out 16.7 guys per 9 innings. Like, prime Craig Kimbrell was absolutely lethal. I'm just forgetting those. Oh my goodness, man. He had a 1.01 ERA, and he led the league in saves for 4 consecutive seasons with a FIP below .8. It was just, wow. That is, boy, good to go down that road. Anyway, moving on.
Just to see if the A's will trade him now, considering where they're at and what they can potentially even get for him. I don't know how many years of control he has, but as of right now, for one of the best closers in baseball. But let me ask you the panel a question. You mentioned Mason Miller was a starter, now going into relief. You mentioned AJ Puk was a reliever going into a starter. When it comes to moving guys, is there one where you rather not do it? Would you rather not mess with a reliever and make him a starter, or starter to a reliever? Do you guys like that in terms of what teams are doing, or would you rather not touch one or the other? Just let a guy be a starter, let a guy be a reliever, or how would you go?
Well, a big reason why you see a lot of starters go to relievers is because they try it at the minor league level. And I guess the prime example was someone like an AJ Puk, who started for a couple years in the minors, didn't go his way, reliever. And then I guess Miami decided to make him a starter again, which, I mean, early on it looked great, but when spring training doesn't matter. It's what you see in the season, and that didn't work out. So it really depends, like if you could go a consistent 5 to 6 innings per game, and there's a lot that goes into it. If you just can't last out there. There's a reason why, 6 those reasons different, but you kind of look at it, I guess another example would be a George Soriano. It was a quicker pathway for him to get to the majors. Obviously not working for him now, but he was a starter for his whole career, and he's been in this organization for a very long time. It was just 2 years ago they put him in a reliever as a reliever, and it's kind of worked out for him for the most part. Not sure how he's doing right now in AAA, but there's reasons behind it. Yeah, not good, right? Yeah.
I think another candidate, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I think it's a good one. Another guy that the Marlins are going to have to make a call on before long is Edward Cabrera. I don't know if this guy's capable of being a starting pitcher. I really don't know. I really don't know if he's capable of being a starting pitcher. I know everybody likes his stuff. He has all his stuff in the world, stuff this, stuff that. He has great stuff. Doesn't control it, especially later in starts. Second, third time through the lineup, doesn't control it. Doesn't do it. And he hasn't done it for a very long time. So I think before long, the Marlins, maybe not right now, because this season they can fill out the rest of the season. It's a losing season. They can do whatever. It doesn't matter. I think before long, the Marlins, if they're going to put together a serious rotation of 5 starting pitchers, I don't know if Edward Cabrera will be there for.
Let me ask you guys this before Isaac jumps and destroys his screen. Who would you rather have as a reliever? Edward, Max Meyer. Which one do you pull the gun on first?
Max Meyer. It's an easy choice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, look at Carver. Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
One of them is a 5'11" guy with one great pitch and another okay pitch and another below average pitch. The other one has 5 above average pitches that, yes, he is walking a few guys right now. But
I don't
look
know
at
if
what
he has 5.
He doesn't have a durability issue. He can go deep into games if he's not walking guys. And if he walks 3 guys per
He doesn't
night,
have a durability issue. He's been hurt 5 times.
if he walks 3 or 4 guys per 9, you have a number 2 starter. Edward Cabrera, it's an easy choice of those two. Now, does he eventually end up in the bullpen? Maybe. But if it's a question between those 2 guys, easily Cabrera is a starter. And I do think Cabrera is going to be, and for the rest of his Marlins career, Edward Cabrera will be a starter. He will never pitch out of the bullpen as a Marlin.
I don't know how you could say 2 things that you just said. I don't think he has 5 above average pitches. I think he has 3. That's number 1. His control literally is probably some of the worst in on this team. Period. Like
Sure.
His control is very bad, and it's always been bad. It's not gotten better. And the Marlins have worked with this guy. He's had injury problems. Yes, he's tried to work through his injury problems. He's not You also said he's durable. He's not durable at all because he's had so many injury problems. So he's not durable, and he can't control it, and he's never fixed it. He's good first time through the lineup. I think he would be a very good and very viable 1 to 2 inning reliever right now. Can he get past that and maybe build towards that ceiling of being a starter? Maybe. But when he's going 4 innings and allowing 4 runs and giving up walks left and right, that's not great. It's just not good, and it's not part of a winning team.
Fine. I take back the durability one. You're right. I'm forgetting that he has been hurt a good amount of time. But the rest of it, yes, I think almost all of his pitches are above average or average. And I'm sorry, you just do not give up on that type of time. And I agree. When a starter fails, that's when you put them in the bullpen. You don't do a bullpen guy as a starter like they did with Puck. But with Edward Cabrera, man, you have nothing to lose here. And I'm telling you, he will never throw a pitch out of the bullpen in his Marlins career. I'm telling you that right now.
I don't think you have anything to lose with either one of those pitchers, Meyer or Cabrera, right now. I'm saying, and I agree with you, like I think rest of this year, maybe rest of his Marlins career to be a starter. I think long term, if you put him on the Dodgers, he's a reliever, obviously, right? You put him on another very good team, he's not going to be a starter.
The Dodgers would have him in the rotation 100%.
I don't think so, but okay, we can disagree about that.
He's not
a starter.
He's better than 2/5 of the rotation right now. What are you talking about?
I do have a question from a perspective about Cabrera and his command. So on the matter of keeping him a starter versus moving him into the pen, obviously the offensive side of the team is not fantastic by any means. I hesitate to even use the word fantastic, but if this were a better hitting team, would it at least make sense to say that keeping Cabrera in the starting rotation, despite his command issues, if he were to walk guys, at least you can manage the potential load of him walking guys and potentially letting those runs come in over the course of several innings, as opposed to letting him be a reliever, let's say a high leverage reliever, and then him giving up walks and then potentially a multi-run homer, and then you have an inning or 2 left to make back all those runs or to score those runs back. I don't know if that makes any sense as a question, but that's something that I would at least take into consideration in the debate of keeping him as a starter versus moving him to the pen.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like if the offense was better, obviously the pitchers are going to be better and act more favorably because you're pitching with a lead, right? You're right. Everything goes together, Alec. You're right. Like if the offense is better, everybody gets better, right? Especially on the pitching side. So I know what you're saying, but just this guy with the raw stuff that he has and the raw tools that he has great tools and great stuff. He just cannot control it. He cannot control it.
Okay, but that's not just a him thing, man. Like, look at half of the Dodgers rotation guys. No one can throw strikes these days. Like, people are walking guys, and Cabrera's no different. I know,
but this guy sometimes isn't close. He's just not close sometimes.
Yes, there's some ugly 4-pitch walks. I agree. There are some ugly 4-pitch walks out there sometimes from him that you don't want to see. But then the next day he'll go strike out 12 and not walk a single guy.
And the thing is too, like not to go too long on this, but the other thing is too is like he's actually pretty good early in counts. It's just that he can't get guys out. He can't put guys away. That's the problem, right? You just cannot put guys away, and it really runs into an issue.
Of course, you can put guys away. I think you're getting the wrong picture. Of course,
I'm not getting the wrong picture. This guy, he shows it and then he just loses it. He shows it and then he loses it. It's so inconsistent. And what you see early in counts is that he's establishing with fastball pretty well. But then when you get deeper in counts and guys maybe run the count up, that's where he really starts to build up the pitch count. Yeah. It's a problem.
Yeah, and all he needs to do is learn how to induce soft contact early in the count, like Sandy Alcantara, and not have to worry about striking out 14 per 9. And then you have something very special. There's absolutely no reason to put that young man in the bullpen.
And they say it too. Like Mel said it in spring. It's not a stuff thing. It's a mental thing. And that's what they're working on. I understand. But yeah, it's just really tough when you see a guy that has the stuff that he does and you can't just put guys away. That's his main thing. He's really good early in counts. You see him established with fastball, and then guys get 1 to 2 balls on him, and he's just losing it. It's really tough to watch.
I know.
All right. Well, let's go into the lineups. Eli, we can go ahead, go over the hour just a bit, just because the game is so late at night. But let's go and look at these lineups. Luis Arraez, DLC, you're going to have Jazz there. Manuel Rivera is going to be at first. Brujan at third. And then looking at the A's, I'll admit, some of these guys, I have no clue who they are, especially those last 3. Eli, talk to us about either lineup. What are you expecting from the Marlins and the A's, maybe offensively in this game? Because you look at the A's offensively, it's almost a wasteland.
Well, we should start with the Marlins just because Dane batting cleanup for this team. I expected him to be in the lineup, of course, against the lefty in JP Sears, who I spoke highly of earlier. But for him to be batting that high up, it's totally appropriate because of Jazz's struggles against lefties and because I think on both sides, these lineups really drop off towards the bottom right here. So I will be curious to see whether with somebody like Brujan, who we touched on it, the fact that he is overall like one of their better offensive producers on a per at bat basis, I think tells you all you need to know about how this team has struggled, but also is a credit to him performing way better than he had at any point the previous few years with the Rays. So he'll be somebody to watch closely these next few days just because Jake Berger's return is pretty imminent. We're just a few days away, we think, from Berger coming back from the IL. And that will eat into somebody, whether it's Brujan or Rivera, I imagine both of them are going to lose a little bit of playing time in that process when Berger returns. So for them, every single moment that they're on the field is going to be extra important for them to kind of prove themselves right here. Sliding over to the A's side, yes, those bottom 3 guys are all rookies. Darrell Hernandez, the underlying StatCast stuff is pretty okay on him. I believe his actual surface level stats are awful, where he's hitting in the low 100s to this point in the season. And he's also not really a shortstop. He's playing, it's an interesting experiment where their shortstop, Nick Allen, was so bad they just sent him down to the minors earlier today. But yeah, it's a very young, inexperienced bottom 3rd. They're kind of riding the guys to watch at the top. Well, Tyler Nevin, he's kind of riding this really random hot streak. I guess that's somebody to watch because when he's been on the field this year, he's been surprisingly good, but he's kind of been a waiver wire guy the last few years. So I don't think it's legit, but I guess for this series, Tyler Nevin, that's somebody that maybe could surprise people with what he does against them these next few days.
Yeah, just look at it here. Not every day you see the Marlins have more red than the other side of the lineup, but occasionally here with the A's, does it surprise you guys when looking at this A's lineup that they're not worse than what their record actually is? If you would have told me, not showing me the record and showing me both of these lineups, I would have said, oh, the Marlins for sure have a better record than the A's. But now looking at it, seemingly the A's are closer to 500 than the Marlins are to even to the point where the A's are right now. What about you guys? What do you guys think just overall on the aspect between both these teams and looking at their lineups? It's just at a point where it seems like teams are almost farther apart than what most people would think.
Something I just want to point out briefly is if you look at the launch angle figures for both teams, the A's actually hit the ball in the damn air as opposed to the Marlins. So I think that makes a significant difference.
Yeah, the A's are actually pretty high up on if you look at like just team stats, I think the A's have like 38, 37 home runs. They're actually like 6th in baseball in home runs. So this team actually hits home runs. So they don't hit for average at all, but they do hit home runs. And like you were saying, Alec, because they hit the ball in the air so much, right? Whereas the Marlins are hitting the ball on the ground a lot more. So you hit the ball in the air, good things tend to happen, and that's what the A's were kind of doing. I think the A's are definitely overachieving. I don't think this is who this team really is. Hopefully this isn't who the Marlins really are, but I think it is. So yeah, I think the A's are overachieving. I think the Marlins are probably performing to or close to the ceiling of this team right now. Maybe they could get a little bit better, hopefully. But with so many young players on a team that are just not putting the ball in play more often than not, and when you do, they're getting, I think, quite a bit fortunate to put the ball out as often as they are.
Look at Brent Rooker, bro. Does that guy ever hit anything on the ground? That's nuts.
I mean, honestly, you look at these records, and if you swap them, it would look like it made sense. You know, you would think the Marlins are the 15 and 17 team, not the A's. And obviously, different. You know, they've had different years, different seasons, and different types of productions. But
Nope. Uh-oh.
Yeah. One thing just to point out is, by similar to last year's Marlins, the A's are really outperforming their run differential by 3 wins, even over this small portion of the season. By like Pythagorean record, they'd be a 12-20 team, whereas right now they're 15-17. If they were 12-20, people would be like, yeah, that makes sense. And instead, the difference has been, as we touched on, that bullpen. Not just Mason Miller. We went deep on Mason Miller, but every single guy in that bullpen has been average to extraordinary at some point this year, despite them being really inexperienced for the most part down there. So that is ultimately, that's something that you don't expect to stick around the entire season. But for right now, the Marlins are bumping into them at a time where runs late in games are going to be super hard to come by.
All right, I think that's going to do it now. So let's get into prediction time, and this will be an interesting one to see how everyone goes in this one. So, Eli?
This is prediction time. Eventually, I'm going to put together a new video that I feel good about. But let's get people caught up on the leaderboard here so far this season, where for a moment we still have Daniel on top, but it is a tie.
I'll take that.
Super sub Michael Cronin. In 8th place, Alec, he uses the username Rings in our Discord. That is him. He's ahead of almost everybody else here. Well, Nate is actually right ahead as well. And I'm just noticing that leaderboard isn't actually fully organized, but I will clean that up to make sure that it is.
Yeah, what
accurate.
the hell?
Yeah, they have Sean Millerick like a spot ahead of where he should be, but I will iron that out as we go along. And then just a quick look at what our super subs have predicted ahead of time.
Well, I want to see this.
For this one, it's pretty divided across the board.
Who
right
the
here.
hell is 10 of spades, bro?
Blade, Sean Millerick, Blade. Okay, I like Dane Myers, Brent Rooker, sneaky pick.
Alex Krutchik took Blade, so
yeah. So pretty, several Danes, several Blades.
Marlins 2-1 Dane. I wonder who put that one.
Yeah.
This Michael Cronin guy, any relation to Declan?
I've been asked that before. I'll have to direct that to him. I'm not certain one way or another.
Wouldn't he have picked Declan Cronin every time, you would think?
He is, as far as I remember, he's never picked Declan Cronin as MVP.
Oh, no.
Eli, if you have the graphics, we can start.
Let's do it, baby.
Hold on right there. Turn on our backgrounds. Okay, let's do it.
All right. Of course, lead off for prediction time, Mr. Ken.
All right, we're going to keep this short and sweet. Marlins will sweep the A's, and Josh Bell will be the series MVP.
Jesus.
All right. Nate.
Jesus Sanchez, he said the Marlins are back. I don't think they're back quite yet, but I do believe they take the series in the Coliseum. They're going to take 2 out of 3, and Luis Ariz facing 2 Rays this series. Going to be the MVP.
All right, Mr. Isaac.
I have the Marlins losing 2 out of 3 this time, and I think that Mason Miller will be the MVP.
Ooh. I'll go myself. I have the same exact prediction as Mr. Isaac. A's take 2 out of 3. Mason Miller gets 2 saves, is the MVP. Now let's hear it from Alex Carver.
I will also go with the Marlins losing 2 out of 3. And as an old-time San Diego resident that watches Phil Nevin play, I will go with Tyler Nevin for much of the reasons that Eli stated before. He's on a hot streak. Tyler Nevin MVP.
Eli.
I'm decked out in green, and you can probably guess why. I'm going with the Oakland A's to win 2 out of 3 in this series. MVP, the series opening starter, JP Sears, easy for me to say. He's going to shove.
Ooh. And last, and certainly not least, Alec.
Yeah, I'm going to go Marlins 2 out of 3 on this one. I'm feeling pretty confident. I think Mason Miller will get the save and the one win that the A's get, but I'm picking Dane for the series MVP. He's got a hot bat, and I think he's got something to prove.
Ooh. So it looks like we're getting a lot of Dane, a lot of Mason Miller MVP love this series. Let's see how it happens. Don't forget the game is later tonight, 9:40 p.m. Marlins are on the West Coast, so we'll have some late games there. And don't forget the next stream will also be on the first one for the Dodgers. It will be a late one. I believe 9 o'clock, Eli, on Monday.
Yeah, we're going to be late night with the fish on first.
More importantly, state of the fish on Sunday.
Oh, let's see what happens there. Hopefully the Marlins do not get swept by the A's. If not, that'll be an interesting one there. But of course,
By the way, leading up to
Eric
this
Cabrera?
game, it is a late start. Leading up to this game and leading up to all 3 games in the series, the Jupiter Hammerheads are on TV on MILB TV this series.
really?
So you get Thomas White tonight, Noble Meyer tomorrow, and Jesus Luzardo on Sunday. Go watch MILB TV.
That's fire. That's fire. Good shit.
Wow.
Thank you, Cover.
What's that there? Maybe, hopefully, the Marlins aren't losing too bad to make you switch. But of course, I'm Daniel, Eli, Isaac, Kevin, Nate, Alex Carver. Alec, this is FOF Live presented by Burger and Hicks. As always, go fish.